What is going on today, YouTube? Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Today's video, we're focusing on support. I think I've done one of these somewhat recently, but with this new patch, I just kind of want to cement what the builds and some of the top gods are for support. So today's video is going to be more of a support guide, going to go through the items, both starters and like the actual base items, and just talk about stuff you should look for, when you should build it, is the item bad, never build it, stuff like that. And this also goes with the starters. Starting, we're showing a Relic. So Relic isn't a support. Let's just put that out there right now, not a support. However, I have to show Protector's Mask, and she was the top assassin listed. So that is why it is a Relic. Looking at the starters, Sentinels, Benevolence, War Flag, Protector's Mask. I've said multiple times, I am really not a fan of Protector's Mask. I think it worsens your early game by too much to make it useful later in the game. The best way to say this is when you're playing assassins or mages, part of the value you get from them is their early game damage. Protectors takes that away and then just makes them a little bit more tanky. If you wanted to play a god that is tanky, most of the time you're better off just playing a guardian or a warrior. Is Protectors good at 15? Absolutely. Does it matter? In my opinion, I don't think the late game payoff is good enough to make up for how much worse it is early game. So I'm getting rid of that. Protectors is not something I think is a support item right now, and I very rarely build it, if ever. Sometimes when I want to go for like a fun mitigation build where I go Protectors into Prophetic, maybe, but I think it is just outright worse. Focusing on the main three starters for support, Sentinels, Benevolence, and War Flag. Currently, I think Sentinels has taken a pretty big fall. I think it is the worst of the three by a wide enough margin that I very rarely consider it also. I think I want to focus on both Benevolence and War Flag, and even with this, I want to narrow in even farther. I think very few games in Smite should you be building not Compassion or Spartan Flag. I think Spartan Flag and Compassion are nearly always the best available option. Now, why do I think Heroism doesn't contest with Compassion? Well, first off, Compassion stats are better. Outright, flat out, just better. Slightly less health, better HP 5, slightly less MP 5, but it gives magical protections. If you look at the passives also, are they pretty close? Kind of. But think about the fact that one of them can be countered and one of them can never be countered. You cannot counter damage reduction. You can counter shielding. So one, the stats are outright worse. Two, it can be countered. Very few reasons to ever build Heroism over Compassion. And then going to War Flag, this one's a lot closer. The only reason I'm as adamant about building Spartan Flag over War Banner is for one reason. And the one reason is if you compare each of these items at a base level, which item is better? Like just at a base level, not going into a fight, you know, trying to stack up minions. Spartan Flag, all you need to do is hit an enemy one time in a fight. One time in a fight and you will get value from Spartan Flag. With War Banner, you need to kill an enemy or play around farming waves walking into a fight. And you cannot last hit the wave. You have to let the wave die and then walk into the fight. That's why, in my opinion, until you're at like the top level where you can actually think about min-maxing stuff like that, I wouldn't even worry about War Banner. When I stream ranked, I will say in the past month, I have not built War Banner and I've not built Heroism. I've built Sentinel's Embrace a couple times just because I think it's fun building it with like a Chronos Pendant mid laner, like Ixchel, Raijin, stuff like that. I think it's fun, but I still think it's just outright worse than Spartan Flag and Compassion. So now how do you decide between Compassion and Spartan Flag? Well, ask yourself, are you playing with your backliners? If the answer is yes, build Compassion. If the answer is no, I'm going to play with who's ever strong, build Spartan Flag. Am I diving? Build Spartan Flag. Am I building Blink? Build Spartan Flag. Compassion gods are Khepri, Geb, Ganesh, Yemoja. Outside of that, you're probably just building Spartan Flag in most games. Next step, your first item. I don't know how to make this any more plain than with this sentence right here. For the value you get from these two items, not a single other item in the game is better first than either of these two. Not a single item in the game is worth more value first or second than these two. And that's me including both of these items together as a Cloak first, Thebes second. No item is worth more than Cloak into Thebes. The only downside to these items, actually, I wouldn't even say Thebes. There's literally no downside to Thebes. You can go Thebes in literally every single game and it's good. The downside to Cloak is you need to worry about stacking, which means you playing more aggressive, which means you might be dying a little bit more than you want. I think If I was playing to win every single ranked game and I did not care about how monotonous the game got, I would build Cloak into Thebes every single game. And I am not kidding. If you really wanted to win, you wanted to be as strong as possible every game, Cloak into Thebes every single game. It is very easy. And to double down on that even more, the easiest way to win ranked games is to just not think about counter building in your actual build and leave counter building to your relics. So if you wanted to, in every single ranked game you play, you could build Spartan Flag, Cloak, Thebes, Pridwin, Glad Shield, Pestilence. Literally every single game in that order, and you will be very strong, and you will be a very powerful support. You leave these 4 relics for counter building. Blink, do you need to be an engaged? Yes, no. Horrific Emblem, do they have either a really good dive or do they have healing that you're worried about? 90% of the time, this item is a yes. Heavenly Wings, I'm a very unsafe support and I know they're going to try to kill me with Horrific Emblems. Sprint. Shell, this is literally just for Phantom Shell. Do they have Odin and you can't get out of cage? Do they have Ymir and you can't get past wall? Thor, you can't get past wall. That's the only reason to go Shell. I wanted to throw it out there just because I think it is something important to talk about, but your focus in every single game should be one of these or 2 of these 3 items. And then obviously if you need the Phantom Shell, go Phantom Shell. But I've said this in all my other guides. Horrific Emblem is the single best blank in the game. It's better than any god, better than any item. You know the blasphemous thing I just said about Thebes and Cloak in every single game? There's not a better first item. Horrific Emblem is a better relic than either of these 2 items are first items. I mean, yeah, maybe you're comparing apples to oranges, but if you told me give up Thebes and Cloak or give up Horrific Emblem, I'm giving up Thebes and Cloak every game. I'll go Binding first item if I have to. Horrific Emblem is a net positive every single game, bar none. It's good offensively, good defensively, good for dive, good for peel. There's never, ever, ever a downside to Horrific Emblem. So that allows me to double down even more on my earlier sentiment. If you want to ranked games and you don't want to think about counter building or anything like that, you can go Spartan Flag, Cloak, Thebes, Pridwin, Glad Shield, Pesty, Horrific Emblem every single game. And the only other thing you'd have to think about is, do I need to blink into engage? Do I need to sprint away from enemy? Or do I need Phantom Shell? And just like that, it's easy. Now, to just talk about some of the items, because for some of you players, you are very good at the game. You don't really care about like the monotony. You don't want to build something that's just good every game. You want to focus more on stuff that's very, very good and kind of min-max stuff. In current support, these top 6 items are all very bad. Never would I build Cannoneers unless I was just playing like a fun support game where I'm going a non-support starter. Lotus Sickle, stats aren't good enough for what it provides. Sov, been gutted, nerfed way too many times. Phalanx, gutted, nerfed too many times. Magi's, better options in 99% of scenarios. Mail of Renewal, not good enough passive for what you're getting. Getting to Erosion, we can actually talk about things that are valuable. Do they have shields that you're worried about? Odin, Kepri, stuff like that. Erosion has value. Berserker Shield, never. Don't even think about it. Breastplate of Regrowth, I will give you the option to build this if you're playing Herc. If you're playing Herc, build it, because it's very good for Herc. Every other god, do not build it. Contagion, Coin Flip, can be a good anti-heal option. Usually I'm bigger on Pesty in most games, but sometimes Contagion is just a good item. It also helps you stack your Cloak. Breastplate of Valor, I became a fiend for Breastplate. I've really liked the combination of Thebes, Breastplate, Pesty. I think it feels very good. It's a quicker spike than going Cloak second. And then you can go Pridwin 4th with your Spartan Flag, and then your 5th item can just be whatever you need, Erosion, Binding, whatever. I've been liking Breastplate as a second item. I think it gets worse the farther in the game it goes, but I think as a first or second option, a lot of times it can be valuable. Emperor's not good enough. It's especially terrible after EFG, and most of the times you're not getting value from this pre-20 minutes, so there's like a 10-minute window where it's good, and that's only good. That's not even great. Archdruids, more of a solo item. I wouldn't build it. Manticore Spikes, no, not good. Glad Shield, good as a damage option if you're building like full tank. Midgard, one of the most underrated items in the game for support. In solo, I think it's one of the worst kept secrets. Build this more often in support for min-maxing. Do they have a lot of auto attackers? Are they auto attack reliant? Is their assassin somebody that needs to stick to you with a bunch of autos? Yada, yada, yada. Sword of Binding, good option. Never great, always good. Spectral, I'm going to say it right here. I'm saying it with my chest. Horrible, horrible item. It's good in one scenario and one scenario only. Are you playing against Mercury? If the answer is yes, build it, but build it with like a frown on your face because you're pissed that you have to build it. It is not good against hunters. Most of the time, you should just not be taking hunter damage as a support. And yes, maybe that sounds weird, but you need somebody else that is diving the enemy hunter if they have crit. You should not be the one doing it, or you should be getting in, forcing relics, and then immediately getting out. Cloak, we already talked about it. Abyssal, I can never find a spot where Abyssal feels great. So I'm going to say don't build it. Thebes, already talked about it. Void, not good. Spirit's Robe always can be okay. Mystical Mail, nope. Pridwin, always good. And then Mantle of Discord can be good, kind of like Spirit's Robe. Going to the magical items, Wingblade, very valuable. Auto every game, absolutely not, but it is very valuable in a lot of scenarios. Oni's Hunter Garb, meh at best in support. I rarely build it. Genji's meh at best. I rarely build it. Shogun's meh at best. I rarely build it. If I'm playing like Fafnir, maybe I throw it in the build, but losing the cooldown makes it feel a lot worse in support. Void Domaru, I'm still iffy on Void Domaru. I will say it's fine. And then these last 4 items, before we go to the health items, Absolution, counter item. That's as plain as I can say it. Can you make use of it against their comp? If so, it's going to be good. Pesty, very good anti-heal option. Probably one of the best magical defense items for supports. Harward, I think is not very good. Talisman, I think is horrible. Relic Dagger, very good. Relics are very, okay, when I say relics are very OP, Horrific is very OP. Toxic Blade, horrible. And then lastly, Gaia. I'll say it's fine-ish. It's fine-ish. It can be a nice niche counter pick item. Sometimes that healing can be very powerful, but I'm not going to go any deeper than it can be good. That's the support guide, a little walkthrough of builds. Again, if you guys have any questions about gods, or if I think something's good, or what do I think about this item combination, drop it down in the comments below. But for now, this is just a nice little guide for your support builds. If you use this, guaranteed you're going to be playing better. And I can nearly guarantee you're going to gain an MMR. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. I'll see you guys again next time. Peace.